everything out for the audience. When you take Star Trek and try and make it work for everyone, not just nerds, you unfortunately have to spell it out for them using imagery they can recognize and associate with so that they're not totally confused. This is where the movie starts to lose its attachment to Star Trek and it becomes space adventure film set in the future of space. There are a lot of little things in the film like this, but I'm going to focus on 4 main ones. Number 1, Starfleet Academy. The location is right, the look is right, but the feel is wrong. If you show Starfleet the way it's typically portrayed, people in the audience would ask, what is this, like some kind of resort? Or, is this like some kind of weird cult? What's going on? Or, why is everyone wearing clothes at this weird San Francisco New Age nudist colony? You see, Starfleet is a military academy. Academy comes from the word academics. It's not where enlisted men go. You could just enlist in Starfleet if you want and perform some kind of task and become like a petty officer or just a regular crewman, but you'd have no rank. You see, Starfleet is to West Point, as the base in Starship Troopers is to Camp Lejeune. Now this is a very mild point I'm making, and I'm trying not to nitpick, because I do like this movie. But I also like to analyze things. In Star Trek, not all members of Starfleet went to the Academy.
They're not bridge officers. They haven't made the Starfleet Academy. Engineers.
The Academy was for the best and the brightest, and it was actually pretty hard to get into.
I didn't get into the Academy. I failed you, and I failed the Enterprise.
The way that it's portrayed in Star Trek is like everyone enlists and then they get shipped off to war. Kinda like Vietnam. Now this is all just semantics, but Pike encourages Kirk to enlist in Starfleet, not to apply to Starfleet Academy.
Enlist in Starfleet.
They mention that Kirk's test scores are off the chart because he's indeed a genius like all the other characters, but the movie blurs the line a little when it comes to the military aspects of Starfleet. For example, they show the cupcake guy and his buddies as cadets. Somehow I doubt this guy passed the exam and was accepted into the Academy, especially when it seemed like his lifelong dream was to point a gun at people. I would guess that most security guards were just crewmen and not officers. The rougher, more militaristic environment, though, helps the audience understand what's happening. That Kirk and his friends are all on the bottom of the food chain and starting out their careers in Starfleet. At times I feel like Starfleet is made up of space marines.
You understand what the Federation is, don't you? It's important. It's a peacekeeping and humanitarian armada.
Nice try.
2. Enterprise construction. Starships typically aren't built at Earth or on the ground for this matter. They were usually built at a facility called Utopia Planitia orbiting Mars. But remember, this segment is called Spelling It Out for People. By changing this detail, it allowed for scenes of Kirk to see his destiny in the distance. It was metaphorical and visual. You see, J.J. Abrams deals more in visuals and emotions of the moment, more so than the complete accuracy of all the technical stuff. This is why this movie butts heads with a lot of Star Trek fans. Let me give you a quick example and see if it bothered you, or if you even noticed it at all. So all the cadets land inside the shuttle bay area of the ship. Spock is there too because he presumably came up on a shuttle with the rest of them. So Spock leaves the shuttle bay and we follow him inside a turbo lift. He grabs the handle and in like less than 5 seconds or so he's already up on the bridge. Now the bridge is pretty far away from the shuttle bay. Normally there's horizontal and vertical turbolift shafts that run inside a starship. So in this scene, Kirk, Spock, and Scotty take a turbolift ride up to the bridge from engineering, which is actually closer than the shuttle bay. Let's watch.
Well?
Impossible, Captain. The power source is protected by a material we cannot breach, even with our phasers. Mr. Scott and I have prepared the means for the only logical alternative available to us.
What alternative?
The barrier we must penetrate is composed of negative energy.
I have opened the control valves to the matter-antimatter nacelles. On your signal, I will flood them with positive energy.
What?
When we engage the barrier, the ship will explode. The Kelvins will be stopped here.
And so will we.
Are you mad? I can't just...
Even in the Next Generation times, the turbo lift took a while. And when you hear that sound, that means it's changing over from one shaft to the next. Now, did the creators of the movie know how far the shuttle bay is from the bridge? Gee, I hope so. Did they care? Nope. Here's why. It's because this movie is all about fluidity. It's about emotion and adventure. The style is fast-paced, the camera movements are free and flowing, and you're meant to be filled with a sense of adventure. Hey, wait a minute. The Enterprise was being built in Iowa? Right where Kirk happened to live? Talk about convenience. So wait, this movie fucking sucks! 3. The Kobayashi Maru test.
Armed photons, prepare to fire on the Klingon warbirds.
Yes, sir.
Jim, their shields are still up.
Are they?
Okay, we got it. You rigged the test.
No, they're not.
Fire on all enemy ships. 1 photon each should do. Let's not waste ammunition.
Yep, I got it.
Target locked and acquired on all warp.
Let me guess, you did something to the test, right?
All ships destroyed, Captain.
Begin rescue of the stranded crew.
Thank you for telling me what's going on in an over-exaggerated caricature. Can you make it any more obvious for the audience? Wait, the original use of the Kobayashi Maru test was to show that Kirk never wanted to lose, right? And then he had to deal with losing? What's the point of the test this time?
The purpose is to experience fear.
To experience fear? How do you experience fear for real when you know it's a simulation? And then you got Uhura clowning around in the background.
We are receiving a distress signal from the USS
Hey,
Kobayashi
quit
Maru.
clowning around back there. I'm trying to experience fear. In the next gen, they do a similar test on Wesley Crusher when he's applying for Starfleet Academy. You see, they make him think he's waiting for some kind of test in a room, and then an unrelated accident occurs elsewhere in the building. Wesley is then forced to make a life or death decision all on his own. Point is, he thought what was happening was real. Now that was a test. But in this movie, the purpose of the test was really just to have Kirk meet Spock. They could have just met inside a Kmart, but they slapped in some kind of generic notion that this test was about fear.
And yet you were the one who said fear was necessary for command. Did you see his ship? Do you see what he did?
Of course you got to experience fear. What do you need to take a test for about that? 4. The engine room. Lastly, what was my favorite Star Trek idea and set location has now been altered so that normal people know what's happening. You see, a starship is powered by something called a warp core. It's a really tall tube thing that extends up many decks, and in the middle it houses a matter and antimatter reaction chamber that powers the warp drive. Technology in the future is pretty clean and sterile, actually, and you almost can't tell that it's an engine room. Again, if people saw something like that, they'd say, "Is that a giant frozen margarita dispenser?" Or, "Where's this supposed to be? Why did the movie stop thinking for me?" So now the Enterprise engine room looks pretty similar to a modern-day cruise ship, making it very clear that we're now in the engine room. Now, I do appreciate the fact that they took the effort to film in real locations, rather than sit on their ass and film people in front of a blue screen and have it end up looking like fucking crap. But I get the vibe that these scenes and others were filmed in some kind of like water reclamation facility, or like an oil refinery, or fermentation plant, or something like that. The warp cores look suspiciously like tanks they brew beer in. If this is true though, and they shot the unimportant locations in real locations to like save money or whatever, well, then that's kind of horrible, isn't it? Do they have to go back to the same location every time they shoot a sequel? What if they can't get in that location again? What if it goes out of business because of the economy? Or what if it gets knocked down by a tornado? They'll have to build a set that looks just like it, when they should have just built a set in the first place. They'll probably just shoot the engineering scenes inside the kitchen of a Chick-fil-A. The new warp drive will be like the fry cooker. Hot plasma coming through! Now I would be negligent in not mentioning things that they kept the same and that I like. For example, I like the transporter room, the transportation process, and the look of everything. I think it's kinda neat, actually. Same with the view screen. I like how it's a combination of window and view screen. If you think about it, it would have been really helpful in a situation like this. Also, the new ship design is pretty cool, and I like the way that they jump into warp drive. It's very much like Star Wars hyperspace, and has a real kind of adventurous feel to it.
Let's punch it.
It's really hard for me to say nice things about a movie. So at this moment, I'm sticking a fork in my ball. Number 6, more